That night, when I opened my eyes in the park, I was startled by the weight I felt on me. There was a beautiful blanket over me. The beautiful woman standing over me must have covered me. And she smiled at me and quickly walked away. 3 days later, when I went to the hospital for a checkup, I found her in a nurse's uniform. But she wasn't a nurse. She was a cancer patient with only a few weeks left to live. So who was this woman, and why had she covered me? Why was she spending her last days helping strangers? What was her story? I'm gonna tell you the story of this woman whose path crossed mine. Stay tuned.
My name is James. I am nobody. I sleep on park benches. I eat from trash cans. I have no family, no friends, no home. 3 years ago, I lost everything. My job disappeared. My apartment went next. Then my dignity followed. Now I just exist. I move from corner to corner, invisible to everyone passing by. That Tuesday night was freezing cold. I found a bench near the fountain in Central Park. The wind cut through my thin jacket like a knife. I curled up tight, trying to keep warm. My stomach was empty. My body ached from another day of walking. I closed my eyes and prayed for sleep to come fast. When I woke up, something felt different. Weight pressed down on me. I opened my eyes slowly. A thick blanket covered my body, soft and warm. I sat up fast, confused and scared. A woman stood 5 feet away. She was beautiful. Long dark hair fell past her shoulders. She wore an expensive coat, clean jeans, and white sneakers. She looked at me with kind eyes and smiled gently. I tried to speak, but my voice caught. She raised her hand as if to say it was okay. Then she turned and walked away quickly, disappearing into the morning crowd. I grabbed the blanket and held it close. It smelled like lavender and fresh laundry. Nobody had done something this kind for me in years. I wanted to run after her and say thank you, but she was already gone. I folded the blanket carefully and kept it with me all day. That night I used it again. It kept me warmer than I had been in months, but I didn't know this stranger would change everything. 3 days passed. I got sick. My chest hurt when I breathed. I coughed so hard my ribs ached. A man at the shelter told me about a free clinic at Memorial Hospital. I walked there the next morning, hoping they could help. The waiting room was crowded and smelled like antiseptic. I sat in a corner, trying not to cough too loudly. People stared at me. I knew how I looked, dirty clothes and messy hair. After an hour, a nurse called my name. I stood up and followed her down the hallway. She took my temperature and blood pressure without saying much. Then she left me in a small room to wait for the doctor. I heard voices outside. One of them sounded familiar. The door opened and I looked up. It was her, the woman from the park. She wore scrubs and had her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She carried a clipboard and looked professional. But when she saw me, she froze. Her eyes went wide. Then a smile spread across her face, warm and genuine. "It's you," she said softly. I couldn't believe it. "You're a nurse here." She nodded and stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I volunteer sometimes. How are you feeling?" "I wanted to thank you," I said quickly, "for the blanket. You didn't have to do that." "Everyone deserves kindness," she replied. Her voice was gentle but strong. We talked for 10 minutes. She checked my lungs and said I had bronchitis. She gave me medicine samples and told me to rest. Before she left, she wrote her name on a piece of paper. Sarah. "Come back next week for a follow-up," she said. "I'll be here." I nodded, still shocked. She smiled again and walked out. I left the hospital feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe even happiness. Maybe you've witnessed moments like this too, when a stranger's kindness cuts through the darkness. Little did I know, she was lying about everything. The next evening, I waited near the hospital entrance. I didn't know if she would come out or if I was being foolish, but I had to see her again. At 6 o'clock, she appeared. She had changed into regular clothes, a blue sweater and black pants. She saw me immediately and her face lit up. "James," she said, walking over, "what are you doing here?" "I wanted to say thank you again," I said, suddenly nervous. "Maybe buy you coffee. I don't have much money, but—" She laughed softly. "I'll buy the coffee. Come on." We walked to a small cafe 2 blocks away. The place was warm and smelled like roasted beans. We sat by the window. She ordered 2 coffees and paid before I could protest. Tell me about yourself, she said, leaning forward. I hesitated. What could I say? That I was homeless and broken? But something in her eyes made me feel safe. I told her bits and pieces, my past life, my fall, my current situation. She listened without judgment, nodding and asking gentle questions. She made me feel human again. What about you? I finally asked. Why do you help people like me? She looked down at her cup. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves compassion. I learned that the hard way. Her voice had changed, somehow sadder. But before I could ask more, she smiled and changed the subject. We talked for another hour. She told me about books she loved and places she wanted to visit. I found myself laughing for the first time in months. When we finally left, the sun had set. Can I see you again? I asked, my heart pounding. Tomorrow, she said without hesitation. Same time, same place. I walked back to the park that night feeling lighter than air. I lay on my bench, wrapped in her blanket, and thought about her smile. What I didn't see coming was her secret, the truth that would shatter everything. The next day felt like forever. I spent hours cleaning myself at a public restroom, trying to look presentable. At 6 o'clock, I stood outside the cafe waiting. She arrived 5 minutes later, wearing a green dress and carrying a small bag. You look nice, she said, and I felt my face get warm. We went inside and ordered sandwiches this time. She insisted on paying again. We sat in the same spot by the window. The conversation flowed easily, like we had known each other for years. Why do you work at the hospital? I asked between bites. I like helping people, she said simply. It makes me feel useful, like my life has meaning. There was something in her tone, a weight I couldn't identify, but she smiled quickly and asked me about my day. After we ate, we walked through a nearby park. The evening air was cool but pleasant. We talked about everything and nothing. She told me about her favorite movies. I shared stories from my childhood, memories I thought I had forgotten. At one point, she stumbled on a crack in the sidewalk. I caught her arm to steady her. She looked at me and whispered, "Thank you." Her hand stayed on mine for a moment longer than necessary. My heart raced. Something was happening between us, something real and terrifying. When we parted that night, she hugged me. It was brief but warm. "See you tomorrow," she said. I nodded, unable to speak. I watched her walk away until she disappeared around a corner. The days turned into a routine. Every evening at 6 we met, sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at the park. We talked for hours about life, dreams, regrets. She never judged me for my situation. She treated me like I mattered. One Saturday, she showed up in the afternoon. "I have the whole day off," she said excitedly. "Let's do something fun." We walked to the waterfront and sat on a bench overlooking the river. Boats drifted past slowly. Families walked by with children. The sun warmed our faces. "This is perfect," she said quietly. I looked at her. "Why are you so kind to me? You could be anywhere, with anyone. Why spend time with a homeless guy?" She turned to face me. Her eyes were serious now. "Because you see me, not what I look like or where I come from. You see me, James. That's rare." I wanted to tell her that I was falling for her, that every moment with her felt like a dream, but fear held my tongue. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the water. Her hand rested on the bench between us. Slowly, carefully, I moved my hand closer until our fingers touched. She didn't pull away. Instead, she intertwined her fingers with mine. Anyone experiencing this moment would feel their heart race. Time seemed to stop. Nothing else mattered except her hand in mine. That night, I lay on my bench staring at the stars. I thought about her constantly. Her laugh, her smile, the way she listened. I imagined a different life, one where I could be worthy of her. I didn't sleep much. My mind raced with possibilities and fears. What if she got tired of me? What if she realized I was just a burden? What if this all ended? But every day she kept coming back. Weeks passed like this. We fell into a pattern that felt natural and right. She became the center of my world. I counted the hours until I could see her again. When we were together, everything else faded away. One evening, we sat on our usual bench in the park. The air was getting colder as autumn deepened. She shivered slightly, and I wished I had a jacket to offer her. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded but didn't meet my eyes. Just tired. Long week. I noticed she looked thinner than before. Her face seemed paler. Are you sure? You look... I'm fine, she interrupted, forcing a smile. Really? But something felt wrong. I could sense it. A distance had crept into her voice. Sarah, I said gently, you can talk to me about anything. She looked at me then, and I saw something in her eyes. Pain. Deep and overwhelming. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. I care about you, I said. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. A lot. Maybe more than I should. Her eyes filled with tears. One rolled down her cheek. James, She stopped, took a deep breath. I care about you too, more than you know. My heart soared and broke at the same time. Something was terribly wrong. I could feel it. What is it? I whispered. Please tell me. She shook her head. Not yet. Soon, I promise. We sat together until dark. She rested her head on my shoulder. I could feel her breathing, slow and heavy. I wanted to protect her from whatever was hurting her, but I didn't know how. Everything was about to fall apart. The next day, I went to the hospital for my follow-up appointment. I hoped to see Sarah. Maybe we could grab coffee afterward. I checked in at the front desk and waited. 20 minutes passed. A different nurse called my name. I followed her to an exam room and waited for the doctor. Through the partially open door, I heard voices in the hallway. Then I saw her. Sarah. But something was wrong. She was in a wheelchair. A male nurse pushed her slowly down the corridor. She looked exhausted, her skin almost gray. An IV pole rolled beside her with a bag of clear liquid dripping into her arm. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my chair. I rushed to the doorway. Sarah, I called out. She turned her head. When she saw me, her face crumpled. James, no, you shouldn't see me like this. I ran to her. The male nurse stopped the wheelchair. I knelt down beside her, my hands shaking. What's going on? I demanded. What's wrong with you? She reached out and touched my face gently. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Told me what? I said, panic rising in my chest. A doctor appeared behind us. He looked at Sarah with concern. Ms. Chen, you need to get back to your room. You're not supposed to be out here. Ms. Chen is a patient, I said slowly, the realization hitting me like a truck. Sarah nodded. Her voice came out as a whisper. Terminal cancer, stage 4. I've been fighting it for 2 years. The hallway spun around me. I couldn't breathe. But you said you were a volunteer. You were helping people. I lied, she said, her voice breaking. I wanted to feel normal, to spend my last weeks doing something meaningful. Meeting you was never part of the plan. Last week's, I repeated. The words felt like knives. The doctor put his hand on my shoulder. Sir, she needs to rest. You should. No, I said firmly. I looked at Sarah. I'm not going anywhere. James, she whispered, you don't understand. My father, Before she could finish, heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. A tall man in an expensive suit appeared, flanked by 2 security guards. His face was hard and cold. He looked at me with disgust. Who the hell are you? He demanded. Dad, please, Sarah said weakly. This is the homeless man you've been seeing, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. Security told me. I couldn't believe it. He moved closer, towering over me. Stay away from my daughter. You're nothing, a parasite. She's sick, and you're taking advantage of her. That's not true, I said, standing up. I care about her. You care about her money, he spat. That's all you people care about. Mr. Chen, the doctor intervened. Perhaps we should... Get him out, Mr. Chen ordered the security guards. If I see him near my daughter again, I'll have him arrested. The guards grabbed my arms. I struggled, but they were too strong. Sarah reached out toward me, crying. Please, she sobbed. Dad, don't do this. I'm protecting you, he said coldly, from people like him. They dragged me toward the exit. I fought hard, desperate to get back to her. Sarah, I shouted. Sarah, I love you, she screamed. Her voice echoed through the hallway. I love you, James. The guards threw me out the front door. I landed hard on the concrete steps. By the time I scrambled to my feet, they had locked the doors. Through the glass, I could see them wheeling Sarah away. She was crying uncontrollably. I pounded on the door, but security waved me off with a warning. That was the last time I saw her. or so I thought. If you're wondering if this is real, it is, and it would have been much more painful. I sat on the hospital steps for hours. My body felt numb. My mind couldn't process what had happened. Sarah loved me. She said it out loud, but her father had ripped us apart like I was nothing. Night fell, and the temperature dropped. I walked back to my park bench in a daze. People passed by, but I didn't see them. All I could see was Sarah's face, pale and crying as they wheeled her away. I lay down and pulled her blanket over me. It still smelled like her. I pressed my face into it and cried. For the first time in years, I cried like a broken child. The pain was worse than losing my job, worse than losing my home. This was losing hope itself. Days crawled by. I went to the hospital 3 times. Each time, security stopped me at the door. They had my picture, orders from Mr. Chen. If I came back again, they would call the police. I begged them to give Sarah a message. They refused. One guard told me to forget about her and move on, like she was just some fantasy I had made up in my head. But she was real. What we had was real. I spent my days wandering the streets near the hospital, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. At night, I lay awake imagining her alone in that room, sick and scared. Did she think I had abandoned her? Did she know I was trying to reach her? A week passed. Then 2. The autumn cold grew sharper. I got sick again, but I didn't care. My chest hurt when I breathed, but physical pain meant nothing compared to the ache in my heart. I stopped eating much. Food had no taste. I just existed, moving from corner to corner like a ghost. The other homeless people noticed, but nobody asked questions. Everyone had their own demons. At night, I talked to Sarah in my mind. I told her I was still here, that I hadn't given up, that I loved her too. But she couldn't hear me. The distance between us felt like an ocean, impossible to cross. But fate had other plans for us. 3 weeks after they threw me out, I was sitting on a bench near the hospital. It was early morning and frost covered the ground. I watched the entrance from a distance, not hoping for anything, just needing to feel close to her somehow. A black car pulled up to the emergency entrance. Paramedics rushed out with a stretcher. My heart stopped. I stood up, straining to see. They brought someone out on the stretcher. Even from far away, I recognized her. Sarah. She looked so small and fragile. An oxygen mask covered her face. The paramedics moved fast, their faces tense. I wanted to run to her, but security was everywhere. I could only watch helplessly as they rushed her inside. The black car stayed parked outside. A woman sat in the back seat, crying. I moved closer, staying in the shadows. The woman got out slowly. She was older, elegant, with the same dark hair as Sarah, her mother. Her face was streaked with tears and fear. She stood alone by the entrance, her hands pressed against her mouth. She looked lost and terrified. Without thinking, I approached her. "Excuse me," I said softly. She turned, startled. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Yes. I'm James," I said. My voice shook. "I know Sarah. Is she okay?" Recognition flashed across her face. "You're the one, the homeless man." I nodded, bracing for anger, but instead, her face crumpled. "She's dying," she whispered. "The cancer spread to her brain. The doctors say it's a matter of hours now." The world tilted. I grabbed the wall to steady myself. No, that can't be." She looked at me with desperate eyes. "She keeps saying your name over and over. James. She won't stop asking for you." My throat closed up. "Her father won't let me see her." "My husband is inside," she said. "But he's wrong. I've been wrong too." Tears rolled down her face. "My daughter is dying and all she wants is you. That's all that matters now." She grabbed my arm. "Come with me, please. She needs you." We walked through the emergency entrance together. Security started toward us, but Sarah's mother held up her hand. "He's with me, my daughter's guest." They hesitated but stepped back. We moved quickly through the corridors. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. Doctors and nurses rushed past us. The smell of antiseptic burned my nose. We reached a private room. Mrs. Chen stopped outside the door. "My husband is in there, but I don't care anymore. Go to her." I pushed the door open. The room was dim and filled with the beeping of machines. Mr. Chen sat in a chair beside the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when I entered. His face went from shock to rage in seconds. How did you get in here? He demanded, standing up. Richard, I brought him, Mrs. Chen said firmly from behind me. Our daughter is dying. She's calling for him. This is not about us anymore. Get out, he said to me, his voice shaking with fury. Get out or I'll... Dad, please. The voice was weak but clear. Sarah. I moved past her father without hesitation. She lay in the bed, so thin and pale she barely looked real. Tubes ran from her arms, an oxygen mask covered her nose and mouth, but her eyes found mine and they filled with tears. James, she whispered, you came. I knelt beside the bed and took her hand. It felt cold and fragile. I never left. I tried every day. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, she said. Each word seemed to cost her strength. You're here now. Mr. Chen made a sound of disgust. This is insane. He's nobody, a street person. You're wasting your last moments on... Richard, enough, Mrs. Chen said sharply. Look at her face. Look at what he does to her. I glanced back. Sarah was smiling. Despite the pain, despite everything, she was smiling at me. The heart monitor beside the bed started beeping faster, not in a bad way, stronger, more steady. A doctor rushed in, alerted by the change. He checked the monitors and his eyes widened. Her heart rate is stabilizing. Blood pressure is rising. What does that mean? Mrs. Chen asked. I don't know, the doctor admitted. 10 minutes ago she was barely responsive. Now she's... I feel better, Sarah whispered. With him here, I feel better. I was about to discover something miraculous. The doctor checked her vitals again, confusion clear on his face. This doesn't make medical sense, but her body is responding. Keep doing whatever you're doing. I stayed by her side, holding her, hand and talking softly. I told her about the weeks I had spent trying to reach her, about the nights I lay awake thinking of her, about how much she meant to me. She listened with her eyes closed, but she was smiling. Her breathing became easier. The color slowly returned to her cheeks. The nurses came in every hour to check on her, each time looking more surprised than the last. Mr. Chen watched from the corner, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Chen sat on the other side of the bed, crying quietly, but with relief now, not despair. Hours passed. Sarah fell asleep naturally, not unconscious anymore, just sleeping. The doctor returned and reviewed her charts. I've never seen anything like this, he said quietly. This morning, we thought we'd lose her by tonight. Now, her vitals are the strongest they've been in months. Is it possible, Mrs. Chen asked carefully, that emotional state affects healing? The doctor nodded slowly. We've seen cases where mental health impacts physical health, but this fast, this dramatic, it's unprecedented. What happened next shocked even the doctors. Over the next 3 days, Sarah's condition continued to improve. The brain lesions that had been growing stopped their progression. Her energy returned bit by bit. She could sit up, eat solid food, talk without exhaustion. The medical team ran test after test, searching for an explanation. They found none. The cancer was still there, but it had stopped advancing. Her body was fighting back in ways it hadn't in 2 years. I stayed with her every moment they allowed. We talked about everything. She told me the real story, how she had been diagnosed 2 years ago, how she had fought through surgeries and chemo, how she had finally accepted death and decided to spend her last weeks giving kindness to strangers. That night in the park, she said, I was walking home from the hospital after a bad scan. I was thinking about ending everything. Then I saw you, cold and alone. Something in me just wanted to help one more person before I died. You saved me, I said, not the other way around. We saved each other, she whispered. Mr. Chen came to visit every day, but he stayed distant. He watched us from across the room, his face tight and conflicted. I could see the war happening inside him, his prejudice fighting against his love for his daughter. One evening, after Sarah had fallen asleep, he approached me in the hallway. I stood up, expecting another confrontation. The doctors say you're the reason she's improving, he said stiffly. They call it the placebo effect or psychological healing. Whatever it is, it's working. I said nothing, just waited. He looked away, his jaw clenched. I judged you before knowing you. I saw only what you didn't have, not who you are. My daughter sees something I was too blind to notice. I love her, I said simply. That's all I know. I love her and I'd do anything for her. He studied me for a long moment. She loves you too. I've never seen her this happy, not even before she got sick. You give her something no money can buy. His voice broke slightly. I can't lose her. She's my only child. If you're what keeps her alive, then I was wrong to keep you away. It was not an apology, but it was close. He walked away without another word. But the next day he brought me coffee. A small gesture, but it meant everything. Those who experience such moments never forget them. The feeling of walls coming down, of bridges being built where there were none before. Weeks turned into a month. Sarah moved out of intensive care into a regular room, then into outpatient care. The cancer hadn't disappeared, but it had stopped growing. Her body was healing in ways the doctors called miraculous, but couldn't fully explain. Love is a powerful medicine, one nurse told me. We see it sometimes, not often, but sometimes. The will to live, to be with someone, it changes everything. Sarah grew stronger each day. She could walk short distances. She could laugh without pain. Her hair started growing back, dark and soft. She looked like herself again, only better somehow, like someone who had been to death's door and come back with a new understanding of life. Her father changed too, slowly at first, then more noticeably. He started talking to me, asking about my past, my dreams. One day he said, "You need a job, a place to live. I can help with that." "I don't want charity," I said carefully. "It's not charity," he replied. "It's an investment in my daughter's happiness and health." But the story doesn't end there. 3 months after that terrible day in the hospital, Sarah was declared in remission. The cancer was still present but dormant. Her doctors were cautiously optimistic. They had never seen such a dramatic turnaround. We celebrated at a restaurant, just the four of us, Sarah, her parents, and me. I wore clothes Mr. Chen had bought me, still feeling strange in clean fabric. Sarah looked beautiful in a simple blue dress, her new hair styled softly around her face. "To miracles," Mrs. Chen said, raising her glass. "To second chances," Mr. Chen added, looking at me. "To love," Sarah said, her hand finding mine under the table. After dinner, Mr. Chen asked to speak with me privately. We stepped outside into the cool evening air. I felt nervous again, old fears rising up. "I want to offer you a position in my company," he said directly. "Entry level, but with room to grow. You'll need training, but I believe you're capable." I stared at him, speechless. "You saved my daughter's life," he continued, "not with medicine or surgery, with something more valuable. You gave her a reason to fight. That's a debt I can never repay. But I can give you a chance to rebuild your life." "I don't know what to say," I managed. "Say yes," he said. A small smile crossed his face. "Besides, Sarah will kill me if you don't. She has plans for you, for both of you, and I've learned not to stand in her way when she wants something." I took the job. Mr. Chen also helped me find an apartment, small but clean. For the first time in years, I had a key to a door that was mine. I stood in the empty living room and cried, overwhelmed by how much had changed. Sarah visited often. We spent hours talking about the future, making plans that once seemed impossible. She wanted to travel when she was stronger. She wanted to write about her experience. She wanted to help other people going through similar struggles. "And I want you with me," she said one evening as we sat on my new couch. "For all of it, if you'll have me." "If I'll have you," I repeated, laughing through tears. "Sarah, you're everything. You always have been." She leaned over and kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we pulled apart, she was crying too. "We almost lost this," she whispered. "We almost lost each other." "But we didn't," I said, pulling her close. "We fought for it. We're still fighting." Looking back now, I realize how fragile life is, how quickly everything can change, for better or worse. I was nobody, invisible and forgotten. Sarah was dying, giving up hope. But somehow, in the darkest moments, we found each other. 6 months later, Sarah's scans came back completely clear. No cancer. The doctors called it a complete remission, possibly even a cure. They wrote papers about her case, studying what had happened. But Sarah and I knew the truth. Love healed her, not in some mystical way, but in the most real way possible. It gave her something to live for when death felt easier. It made her fight when fighting seemed pointless. It reminded her body that life was worth the pain. We got engaged on the anniversary of the night she covered me with that blanket. I took her back to the same park, the same bench. I didn't have an expensive ring, just a simple band I had saved for weeks to buy. But when I knelt down and asked her to marry me, she cried and said yes without hesitation. Her parents threw us an engagement party. Mr. Chen gave a speech that made everyone cry. He talked about being wrong, about learning humility, about watching his daughter fall in love with someone who saw her heart before anything else. James taught me that worth isn't measured in bank accounts, he said. It's measured in character, in kindness, in the courage to love without conditions. He loved my daughter when she was dying. He stayed when others would have run. That's a man of true value. Sarah squeezed my hand. I looked at her and saw my entire future in her eyes. We married 6 months later in a small ceremony. I wore a suit that actually fit. Sarah wore white and looked like an angel. When we said our vows, neither of us could stop crying. We had earned this moment, fought for it through darkness and pain. Today, 2 years later, Sarah is healthy and strong. She runs a nonprofit helping cancer patients and homeless individuals. I work alongside her, using my experience to connect with people who society forgets. Mr. Chen funded the whole operation and serves on the board. We have a small house now, nothing fancy, but it's ours. Every morning I wake up next to Sarah and still can't believe this is real, that I went from sleeping on park benches to building a life with the woman I love. Sometimes we go back to that park, to that bench where it all started. We sit together and watch the sunset. Sarah brings extra blankets now, and we leave them for whoever might need them. Paying it forward, she calls it. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? She asks sometimes. If I hadn't stopped that night, if you hadn't gone to the hospital. Every day, I answer honestly, but I also think we were meant to find each other. Call it fate or chance or miracle. Whatever it was, I'm grateful. She rests her head on my shoulder. Me too. This story reminds us that everyone deserves kindness, that love has power we can't fully understand, that second chances exist if we're brave enough to take them, that sometimes the person who saves you is the one you thought you were saving. Sarah saved my life that night in the park, but I saved hers too, in ways neither of us expected. We saved each other. And in doing so, we found something more valuable than money or status or comfort. We found home, in each other's arms, in each other's hearts. And that's the greatest miracle of all. What lesson did you gain from this story? How has kindness changed your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Thank you for watching.